drive by yourself?
Yes, I did.
Oh. They're what?
My brother's driving.
So when you go to France, do you like going to France? Do you like France more than the US, or it's just different? It's a good answer. What do you like best about France?
Same river and all that.
We went up, I've got pictures of my family over in 1964. Right before your parents were born. When we lived over there, we lived over Let's see now, who's this little person? Leah.
Beautiful big brown eyes.
Yeah. So Leah's about 9 months? 13 months.
Smart.
Good morning, Chuck.
Yeah, I made it. How about that? 5 minutes to spare. See that? That's the photograph I took.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a good photographer.
Yes, you are. Where is that?
That's at Legacy Park. Let's see, I have something for you.
That wife figured out the way
Yeah, this is for you. There you go.
She was born in
That's better than the one I did last week.
February, yeah. My granddaughter was
Yeah,
born
that's a good one.
in
That's
She's
lovely.
3 months ahead.
Yes, it is.
So how long a lens are you using to get these?
That one? That's
Getting much more
200
interaction,
grams.
you know, when they're
Okay.
saying really
That
interaction, you give them
was
something.
taken a while back. I have it on my computer in a cloud.
Giving and taking, so.
OneDrive, you know that one?
Yes.
Her name is
Yeah,
Mirabella.
it's easy to use.
Yeah.
I have
All of
Microsoft Office. So you can get that with 1,000 gigabytes.
Oh, really?
Comes with Microsoft Office, free of charge, but you pay for it.
Yes, you pay for it when you buy the office.
But it's supposed to be free of charge. Right. Here, I'll show you some more, just a minute. I hope I got these.
What's going?
Oh,
I took these. With the phone, took them with the phone.
no way.
Yeah. This iPhone. Makes you read this. People. Yeah. What was that? Here's the 20. Oh, favorite bird. They named it. Apple named it.
Oh,
This is called the original. Greatest Sioux
Northwest Sioux Falls, Central Sioux Falls.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just telling you where you got it.
Yeah, Veterans Park. In the spring. I took it.
Now that's akin to this one.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is.
Cherries or apples?
Look at that. Isn't it?
It is gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. Oh, she can walk. I'm sorry, that wasn't really the way you phrased
Hi, Chuck Taylor.
Good morning, sir.
Happy Sunday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is
Another one that I get to wake up against.
Yeah.
Hi,
Good morning.
Chuck Taylor.
Rick Noby. Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, call me Charles.
Okay, bro.
This is a donation for the church.
For the library.
Yes, you have a sort of Zen Buddhist.
Yes.
Yes. Just like, whose name is, you retired minister, Steve. He's over in Minnesota.
Ted Tollefson.
Ted Collison is good, but he practices alone. He practices alone.
Really well,
One, two, together. Me, I'm with them. When I'm on business.
Yeah.
They send a.
I wanted to thank you for the beautiful
She wait staff.
Janet Taylor.
Yeah, that's right. I'm running down before it started just to say
I took that picture.
I'm Steve Nessling, and I'm the leader.
Yeah.
At the library yesterday, she just goes
Yeah,
up
go
to this
for it.
family, she's
Yeah,
like,
bye.
And also, church, our mission is to seek truth, practice truth, and live right. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been a member for a long time, you are welcome here. Whether faith you have known or have not known, you are welcome here. Whatever you believe or don't believe, you are welcome here. Yes. Whoever you love or whoever loves you, you are welcome here. Yes. Male, female, both, neither, you're welcome here. Yes. 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 You have questions? You are welcome here. You are questions. Don't have my family answer for you have questions. Today, we have a few announcements. Yes. Next Saturday, the Good Time Girls Comedy Show with a long time Carol Klein from Yankees going to be in. But I do not know where or when. Does anyone know? Other than Saturday. Must be here, but I don't know. Who doesn't know the time. Yeah. Oh, never mind. 6:30 p.m. I just need to read further down on my list here. At 5:15, we're going to have a potluck, and then 6:30 will be the comedy show. Yes. Are there any other announcements?
Good morning, Sioux Falls. I know some of you know me. I'm the chair of the pledge campaign this year. It is pledge season. Many of you have received your pledge card in the mail or picked it up here. If you did not receive it, I can give you one later if you are thinking about giving us a pledge. We need your money, we need your pledges to maintain our programs and our the kinds of things that we've got going on. Things are moving forward at our church here, slowly but surely. We're coming away from the time of the COVID, and we're improving and getting better every day. And we count on your help with us. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm John. We received a thank you from the Community Foundation for our contribution to the Promising Futures Fund. Through your generosity, the church donated $7,170 to the Promising Futures Fund so that children who don't get free meals at school because of the paper bitch can have that paid for. So that would gave us a big thank you. And also, I want to piggyback on Paul's comment. We do things like this, the church can afford to do things like this because of the pledges. And so I would ask if you possibly can to do as much as you can. The first dollars, of course, have to go to pay the mortgage and utilities and so forth. And it's that extra few dollars that you put in your place that allows us to do the good deeds. We made it. Our mission and what we really want to do with all souls. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yes.
Maybe you should do.
We have another one. Great.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that tonight at Spirit of Peace, there is a meditation gathering with a Buddhist monk, from 6 to 8 p.m. So I haven't been there yet, but I'm planning on attending tonight. And Spirit of Peace.
I'm doing just fine, thank you. Do not call me.
Where?
And we still have project next Wednesday at our house from 6 to 8 p.m. If you need the address or if you have any questions, please reach out to me or LT at the end of the service. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Hearing none. One of our sisters here is also the Light of Chalice. The chalice lady. Yes. May the light be now kindled, inspire us to use it to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Truth be told, the only reason I took this jig, that tape is so I can play fire. Yes. We're now going to have our first song, 346. Please stand if
Come sing a song with me, come sing a song with me, come sing a song with me, and I will blow your mind, and I'll bring you home. This hope is hard to find. rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Next, we're going to have our first reading, which is on page 655 in the no. Yes, I'll read the regular text, and if you can follow along with the out, that would be fantastic. Change alone is unchanging. Whoever wishes to know about the world must learn about it in its painful details.
No, not intelligence.
In searching for the truth, be ready for the unexpected.
Change alone is unchanging.
The same road goes both up and down.
The beginning of a circle is also its end.
Not I, but the world says it. All is one.
And yet everything comes in seasons.
All right. Any kids want to come forward? I have a little story to read. Do you have a friend? What's his name? You don't know? Oh, well. Yeah, that's okay. He's really cool. I like it. You call him Bunny? That's good. Very clever. I was going to call him Frog. Oh, don't think he looks like a frog? Oh. What I believe. What do you do? Do you believe that that's a bunny and not a frog?
You can go trust
I
the story
believe
if
that
you want.
when doors open, or when doors shut, windows open. That's okay, you don't have to. I believe spring brings out the hope in all of us. Okay. We're agreed. That's okay. I believe Lord Rose is being to say what they think. I believe your special talents are laid up for you. I believe play is an important part of every day. Do you like to play? Hi. I believe I have trouble reading at this angle. I believe dreams help yourself. I believe fairies dance at sunrise and sunset. I believe animals know more than we think they do.
Amen.
Yeah, that's what what's a bunny thing? Does he know more?
He's scared of cats and pets, so he doesn't accept their dogs, so he doesn't really get much about his food.
Okay, that's fair. That's, I believe that receiving others is just as important as giving. I believe your guardian angel never leaves your side. I believe a good friend is a treasure, and you need to take care of that treasure. Yes. You take care of your buddy. Yes. I believe if you need a nap, you should take one.
I would not nap in a tree.
Napping in a tree may be a little dangerous unless you're a squirrel. Are you a squirrel?
Yeah.
Are you a squirrel? Okay. Okay, okay. Well, but if you have a hammock, then a nap in a tree is really nice. I believe music and dance fill your spirit. You like to dance?
I know a ballerina.
Yeah, someday you have to show me. I believe life can give you, I believe life can give you the best you can imagine. And yes, and that includes great dreams. I believe in the most is you. What I believe in the most is you. Who you are, who you will be, and how you will give your special talents to the world. Thank you very much for coming up and sharing the story with me, and your money and
Even if they don't want it. It's okay for parents to be taking care of their son.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
One of our favorite traditions around All Souls is a time where we give people a chance to express their joys or the concerns that are on their mind. So that they share with the community and celebrate or breathe together, whatever the case may be. And when we do this, we take a rock, when we put the water and the water symbolizes that going out into yes. I have a joy of just enjoying the world. Yes. Go ahead.
I'm Jennifer Havoc. I have a really good joy. My wife finally came out of ketoacidosis and is doing better.
I have two really good joys. The first of them, many of you don't know that I am a Soto Zen Buddhist. I'm a lay member with the Zendo, True Leaf Zendo in Japan, and they are online, and I meditate, which is called sitting, every morning for half an hour or an hour, and everything is around the world. We're all members around the world. It's an international Zendo, and I have been awarded the distinction of Ubasoku. In Japanese, that means uplifting, supportive, grandmotherly. And you know, I have been with the Zendo 8 years practicing Soto Zen Buddhism and meditating or sitting often. The other joy is my daughter is working on a PhD. She's ABD, which means all but dissertation, but working hard on her dissertation. Last year, she spent a year in Japan as a Fulbright scholar, and right now she's been awarded a fellowship, Fulbright fellowship, for one more year to work on. Sometimes you get one, but she gets two, because a very important dissertation from Washington University in St. Louis. And I'm very proud of her. And those are two joys I have. Thank you.
have a sort of a joy, sort of a concern. My wife, maybe some of you know Joy, this is about Joy, a joy about me. She had a cousin who passed last summer, and they were going to have a funeral. They had a funeral on Saturday, so she rented a car and drove to Wisconsin and left me here to take care of my mom. But then she woke up on Saturday morning to find 10 inches of snow and to be unable to move from the house for the funeral. So she'll be coming back tonight. Funeral. As I said to her, better to take care of the living than the dead.
10 inches.
Well, this is for my dear friend Judy, who went to be with her husband, her parents, and her sister. For 30 years, and we've had some close times with them, more distant lately due to COVID and her illness, but they're gonna be Judy.
A lot of joys. Haven't been here a while, so that's one joy. In Yankton, my husband had a stroke last summer. He's come along. I finally got cataract surgery, so I can now drive up to Sioux Falls. I've got a girlfriend, and my husband can't drive, so I've got one more load to pick up in Washington State. I got a girlfriend that's going to help me. And the coolest thing is Reverend Allen. He connected me with Carol Kling, who is a Yankton. And you know what? We have known each other informally and instantly clicked. I was so mesmerized by her, I became a volunteer for a swim class. And then it was over, and she goes, I got things to do, I'm busy, busy, busy. And then finally I says, Reverend Al, what's her name again? So we finally, just last week, I ran into her in another swim class, and I was like, you aren't gonna believe this, Carol. And so we're like, oh my gosh. So thanks to Reverend Allen, and here's to Carol. And she's gonna be back April 1st for a comedy show, and I hope to do better. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Mike, and my big joy is I'm going to be going on a big trip. I'm going to be going over to Portugal for 3 months, so some joy for that, and joy to be in this group. And my concern or sadness is I'm going to miss out on Carol's show. I would recommend you all go. She's pretty fun and exciting, so it's a great event.
Thank you, and I'm putting one last stone for all the unexpressed joys and concerns that have been asked. Now, please take a few moments to just have some time of reflection on the world, your life, and how we can get better. And now we're going to have our second song, page 84 in hymnal. Please stand at table.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we'll be better next time. Get better. For our second reading, please turn to page 660. And again, I'll read the standard text and you guys can follow along with the italicized. To live deliberately. Why should we live in such a hurried and waste of life?
We are determined to be starved before we are hungry.
I wish to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life.
I wish to learn what life has to teach, and not, when I come to die, discover that I have not lived.
I do not wish to live what is not life. Living is so dear.
Nor do I wish to practice resignation, unless it is quite necessary.
I wish to live deep in all the peril of life.
I want to cut a broad swath, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms.
It is, if it proves to be mean, then it gets the whole and genuine meaningless of it. The published is meaningless to the world.
Or if it is sublime, to know it by experience and to be able to give a true account of it.
Today for our message is one of the things we've been doing is we've been giving members a chance to talk about how their thinking has evolved. So first off is my friend Scott, and he's going to talk about this.
When I was about 3 or 4 years old, my Methodist Sunday school teacher gave me a picture in color of some Old Testament prophet. She said, this guy honored God's request for help, and God honored him for his willingness to cooperate. I thought, that's pretty cool. So, the next day, while I was walking through Woodsfield, about knee-high to me, I asked my invisible friend, hey, I hear you need people to help you do things once in a while. Well, yeah, sometimes. Well, if you can find something for me to do, I'll be glad to do it. Okay, I'll see what I can find. I don't think that was my first conversation with my invisible friend. It was the first that I still remember, and it certainly was not the last. I felt like I just made contact with this really old personality that has spent a few million years raising up every type of kid that existed. He knew my type and could certainly guide me to grow up well, if I trusted him. The voice that I heard was almost exactly like my father's, and very wise. So, I called my voice Dad. From what I understood from my church, I was probably talking to the Holy Spirit, but Dad felt like it better to me. It was like I just earned a third parent that was a lot more patient than most. Dad always had a simple perspective and a positive light on things. I learned a lot. One of my questions was, why are there so many churches and religions? Well, because they all started at different times and different cultures. Dad had to meet them where they were, and they used what they understood of Dad from their present perspective. Why is this person this way? Well, this is irritating her, and he feels so bad about himself, he takes it out on you. This particular thought was the first stepping stone in what eventually turned out to be one of my great ahas in life. How to understand that everybody is doing the wisest thing they possibly can if you understand 3 things about them. If you are not a farmer, what would you want to be? I wanted in some way to help folks, but in my tiny town, the only helper was the pastor. From age 6, I suspected that good spiritual theology and psychology were approaching the same thing from opposite perspectives. But they were mergeable if you understood both languages well. A conversation at 13 told me I would meet my wife overseas. I thought, wow, that'll be a great cultural mixing in my future family. I wasn't right about the second part. My family assumed that before a child settles down on the farm, he should do two things: an extended education and some sort of Rumspringa, like the Amish kids. So, when the young youth leader of my Methodist youth group found a traveling acting company that was working mainly with churches from every denomination, I felt an immediate desire to follow in his steps and try this company too. I think me leaving the farm was the hardest thing my father ever faced. But that was also when Dad and I got really serious about our conversations. I found this acting company promised room and board and up to $25 a week if they can afford it. But all three of those were really a faith statement. It was all up to us to go out and use what the previous team found for us to do, plus what we could find right now, and still find some more work for the next team as well. This worry, or need for faith that things will all work out, exhausted most of the people in my company. For me, it was really no big thing. I already knew what it was like to be guided by something bigger than me. I just got used to hearing shorter messages, and more of them. Everything from turn left, bark at cars. There was call Tammy, or ready, set, now. You want to know why David said you will run but not fall? And there was, don't leave this building without knowing how much that window costs. A really good one was, when you wake up, go across the street to that school and they will give you a battery. Each of these stories I love to tell, but no time now. 5 years of seeing what it was like living the book of Acts with Paul's journey, being a part of every type of miracle that Paul did, except two. Every day and every week I was meeting and learning to integrate into a new culture I had never met before, and getting the opportunity to learn to be people that thought differently than I, and to express their emotions. That eventually taught me how to express my own emotions too. 5 years I've nestled in the security of Dad's approval and guidance, just learning new ways when Dad would guide me, and watching how things always worked out well. Then, bang, you're done here. I am? Yep. I'm moving you on now. To what? Is it time to return to the farm? Oh, no. Talk about being shoved into Egypt. I learned how to have the same type of faith, but stuck in one place, Ontario, California, with no clue what was developing there. Another story over how over 8 months I was guided to Oral Roberts University. And 3 days before the next semester started, I was called and told, special circumstances create an immediate opening and a 1-year scholarship. Can you get here by Monday? Now I get to academically learn what I've been experiencing with the psychology and the Pentecostal perspective at the same time. It would take another story to tell you how the college sent me to Israel. Another time I could tell you how Janet and I got engaged there. A third story would be a humorous series of events that led to when and how we married. But those are for later. But the spiritual path took another hard left turn the second year of my master's program. I finally academically understood why my faith was working in good Christianese. I knew the Spirit of God. I called it Dad. But that's all that God was. There was no 3 different beings working as a unit. There was just Spirit. I understood why Jesus said, hey, I'm just doing what Dad is showing me to do and telling me to tell you. It's in John if you want to look it up. I had no idea I had just declared myself a heretic. Jesus was not God. He's just a regular human expressing God who is spirit, two lives. I suddenly could not fit anywhere. Janet and I were working in 2 different churches, and both of them taught us what the left foot of fellowship felt like. Egypt again. But now with Janet, and with all my plans and understanding of Christian words ripped from me, I had no idea how to describe things in other words. The best secular word I've ever found is, I trust my intuition. But intuition is just too small of a word. My intuition has this perspective bigger than I could possibly see alone. I wasn't mad at that, but I had to learn how to relate and understand him again. Time passed and we tried religious science. We learned about the 10 things that all religions have in common. We learned metaphysics and we experienced a lot of very healing inner child workshops. We developed a great social base and made a comfortable life for ourselves in Oklahoma City. Then, something happened to the pastor's team. We had all, and all that was gone again. Nothing but each other. It was good while it lasted. When the next 2 stories brought us to Sioux Falls, here we were only looking for a place that didn't say, "You suck." We found UU's early history and started reading in Transylvania. I discovered it was exactly matched the theology that I found true. When I got to the church, I found a very different culture than I expected. Much more atheist and much more humorous than expected. But people were open. They let me talk out my thoughts. And they let me get reflection and feedback that was safe and from a lot of different perspectives. I found a niche I could fill. My conversations with Dad faded out somewhere in my mid to late 30s. I feel it was because I became stable enough, both financially and in daily routine, that there really wasn't much need for guidance anymore, unless something needed to change on a one-time event. One thing I learned a long time ago is the voice is loud enough to get my attention, but it's never so loud as to not require me to make the decision to trust it. It is a whisper, or just a sense of attraction when I'm trying to find the better of 2 good choices. The last one caused me to send Michelle Obama's recent book to the Indian school we sponsored last Christmas. That's a seed I'll never know what or how it harvested, but I'll never doubt that it will harvest something good. Jen and I have both heard Dad yell before. But the situations were either so time-sensitive or ideas so alien to our own thoughts that it still took a great deal of trust to actually decide to do it. I didn't get to add the power and value of meditation, how it started with hours on my knees, listening instead of talking to God. How it expanded into so many different things from there. But where's my spiritual background? I am a man with lots of stories and experiences, but no big story to describe or define it anymore. I could still describe it my old Christian doctrine that I have always been led by the Holy Spirit. But I really don't know what's going on. I'm just very happy that I got to ride whatever this ride is. I find a lot of truths in Taoism and Buddhism. My most important motto to myself is, be here, right now. It's the only part of Eden I'll ever get to experience. I still love the concept of hyper-intuition, but it still feels like way too small a definition for what actually happens. When I listen to others pray, it now sounds like incantations from Hollywood, or kids begging and trying to manipulate their parents by reminding them of previous promises and calling in their chit. But listening and cooperating, that seems to work well. The one reason I trust my voice is because it always seems to be answering 1,000 variations of my one constant question. What can I do right here, right now, that would create good? That is the one thing you can always depend on me. I am always, right now, trying to sense what influence I can have that would help the most. Most of the time, the answer is simple. You need to feel welcome, accepted, and safe. But how you do that is never the same at any time or for any one person. I have to listen to figure that out.
Thanks, Scott, and your fellow heretics, I'm glad you're here. We also have Arena was supposed to speak.
That is so strange. I've done public speaking before, but today is the least thing that I want to do. Is microphone working well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, Americans usually start a speech with a joke. And very often Japanese start a speech with apologizing. So I'm not a Japanese, but I would like to apologize just for my country and what is happening in Russia. And I try to stay away from this guilt feeling, and I try to just tell you about me because I was asked to do it. I was not given a choice. So I came to America in March 1991. I came on a tourist visa. That was the time of glasnost and perestroika. And these words, glasnost means openness, and perestroika means rebuilding. That was the time many people here of my generation, so they remember the name of Gorbachev. That was a good name in the West and in the United States. And that was a great time for us. It was the time of diversity of literature, publications, great movies, art exhibits. It lasted for a few years. And at that time we felt happy, excited, exhilarated. We were feeling that we were breathing the air of freedom, democracy. But the freedom of speech and expression was not accompanied by any economic reforms. First gradually, and then faster and faster, the stores were becoming empty shelves, the factories were closing down, even staple food like cheese or eggs was difficult to find. I remember myself in the winter of 1991, it was freezing January in Leningrad at that time, and I was standing in line for a dozen of eggs. So about maybe for an hour. So food ratio was introduced, and the government was always making some kind of funny choices. We were given food stamps for sugar. And actually the government calculated that a family needed 10 pounds of sugar a week. So I would look into my kitchen cupboard, and I did not know if I should laugh or be sad and cry, but my shelves were stocked with packages of sugar. So I have a sweet tooth, but even for me it was really too much. So the looming economic hardships and food shortages triggered the discontent and the rising crime rate. In Russia, we have always big celebrations of Christmas, Orthodox Christmas and the New Year. As the year of 1991 was approaching, there was shortage of Christmas trees. But all over towns and our neighborhoods, there were loads of trucks, and there were Christmas trees that were sold from those trucks. And so there was a story, I read that story in the paper, and I saw those big crowds, because you know, if there is a shortage of something, you want to buy 2 or 3 or 4. So people were buying some extra Christmas trees to give it as a gift to a relative or a friend. Some of them were putting them in a freezer, big freezer, to freeze it until the next Christmas. So there was this story about, the true story about 2 guys in that crowd, and I saw those crowds fighting for a Christmas tree, trying to grab it from each other. And one of the guys, it was heated fight, and one of the guys bit the hand of the other guy. Actually, you know, the newspaper was seriously telling the story, and they were saying that, like, almost like people don't do it, because human bite is worse than the dog bite.
Yes.
So I hope that there are no dog lovers here, or if there are dog lovers here, just forgive me for this kind of a reality event from my life. So when I left Russia in March 1991, it was a tourist visa. I was allowed, like other people during the time of glasnost were allowed to travel. It's almost embarrassing to say we were allowed to travel, to go abroad. I would say I was privileged because I was in tourist business, so I did travel abroad maybe 2 or 3 times a year, visiting Europe, India, Egypt, Morocco, other countries. But it was traveling as an interpreter for Soviet tourists. So I had never been to the United States, so that was my opportunity to visit the United States. So I was also fortunate because at that time I was much younger. I was sort of likable. I was very curious about people and the world. I was very interested, and that was one of my majors, history and art appreciation, political science. So I met many people, American tourists, when I traveled and I worked in Russia. And they responded also warmly to me with curiosity and with generosity. So when I traveled and arrived in the United States, in March 1991. I was fresh from the Soviet Union, and I stayed with some people who were inviting me. One of them was a New Yorker. His name was Franz Wanzigeyser. He became a very good friend. He lived very close to Central Park, and at that time he was engaged to Liz. And she was 40 years his junior, and she was from Brooklyn. So Franz and myself, we really developed very good relationship, especially writing letters to each other and staying in touch. And he said that he appreciated and loved my sense of humor, but he did not care for my deep, melancholic Russian soul. Sometimes he would say, Irina, you tell a story and it's almost like Leo Tolstoy. You talk for 10 minutes and then it's 50 pages and just the woman came into the room. So Franz married Liz, and they also came to my wedding, which was a few years later in Sioux Falls. And Liz was gaining, and each picture that they sent me, she was gaining a few pounds and she was becoming a little more plump. And he was saying, well, look how good Liz looks. And she looks a little bit like Nikita Khrushchev. So those of you who remember Nikita, you remember what he looked like. After that, I traveled to Washington, D.C. I also traveled to Colorado. There was another family that I met, John and Cynthia Kendrick. They became like second parents to me. I celebrated almost every Christmas until last year when he died. John died at the age of 95. I'm still friends with his wife. She lives in Colorado in an assisted living. So at that time, you know, Russia was changing. I was traveling for a couple of months and Russia was changing. And there is Russian people, they like jokes. And there is a joke about an optimist and a pessimist. And pessimist is saying, life is so bad, it cannot get worse. And an optimist is saying with a big smile, yes, it can. In the summer of 1991, I was staying with my friends in Flanders, South Dakota, as I was waiting what was happening in Russia and trying to make a decision to go back to find a temporary job, to get a work visa. I got the news that in the summer of 1991, Gorbachev and his, Mikhail Gorbachev and his wife Raisa, they were under home arrest in the Crimea. So then the military took over for a brief time. And then after that, there was another change, and there was a more what we considered to be a democratic government with Boris Yeltsin leading the government. But, you know, at that time, there was more freedom, there was free market economy, but also it opened up the gates and the opportunities for so many oligarchs, unprecedented wealth, at the time of political and economic corruption. And, you know, I knew that I was traveling to Russia regularly at that time, but I did not know the depths of it, which has been revealed now as a result and after the war and the aggression, the Russian war in the Ukraine. At that time, I was still in Flanders, waiting and trying to figure out what will be best for me and my family. My friends in Flanders, Scott Ramsdell and Lenny Ramsdell and their family, they welcomed me, they encouraged me to stay, they understood the changes, the turmoil, what was happening in Russia. They gave me the house of their grandmother who was in a nursing home. Grandmother Virginia was a good Democrat, and they stayed in that house. They even gave me a job, you know, being on a tourist visa. I didn't have a clue that I was probably an illegal immigrant or refugee to get a job. But that job was in Eagan, South Dakota, so I rode a bike about 8 miles and I pumped gas. So I worked at the hours when other people, other folks, local folks did not want to work, usually at night or on Sundays. And especially at night, you know, riding home, usually farmers' dogs would be chasing me and snarling at me and at my bike. It was really rather frightening. Scott and Lenny Ramsdell are still good friends, though they were puzzled by my Russianness. I was always expressing my opinions. I was very proactive about that, political views. I usually like to wear high heels, and even when they took me on horse rides, I would be wearing high heels. I hated to talk about my age. I thought that it is nobody's business. And so Scott Ramsdell took me to a bank, his local bank, you know, Flanders is a small community, everybody knows everybody. And then he helped me to open a joint account. And the bank official said, "What is your date of birth?" And I said, "You don't need to know." And actually Scott was saying that my look was like the look of a deer looking at the headlights, like, you don't need to know. It's none of your business. I did not drive because, you know, in Russia, Russian men, even now at that time also, they were, I would say, chauvinists. They were male chauvinists. I didn't know it at that time. I was brought up as very much of a female, with a female role. But my very intelligent Russian husband was telling me, women should not drive and they are bad drivers. And I believed it, and I was very, very scared. I was also sort of stubborn, and then when Scott took me for my driving lessons in the cornfields not too far from Flanders, and then all of a sudden I can hear him scream, "Stop, stop, stop sign." why do I need to stop? It's cornfield. There are no cars, there are no people. So they had really a difficult time with me. I can understand it now. So little by little, I was becoming more anxious and more homesick. I wanted to go back. I truly, truly love the Russian culture, my friends, my family. Then a phone call came from Sioux Falls that there was an opening for ELL teacher, English as second language. At that time it was called limited English proficiency. So they were looking for somebody with a knowledge of foreign languages and also who understands diversity. So my first real job was at Whittier Middle School as an ELL teacher. Actually, Senator Daschle gave me a letter of recommendation. He came to Russia a year before, and I was accompanying him on a trip to Russia. During the next 16 years, I worked as an ELL teacher and a homeschool liaison. During that time, I started support group for immigrant and refugee youth that they were called challenge groups. And they evolved into a non-profit organization, and I'm still a director and the founder. It's called Translators of Cultures. During that time, I was working for the school district, and I went back to school, and I graduated from SDSU with a degree in counseling, psychology, and human resources, and that was in 2001. I worked in a counseling agency, which was called LifeMarks, and then I joined the Great Plains Psychological Services. Maybe some of you know Dr. Scott Priggle. So he was the director, and he was the owner of that clinic. And then last spring he told us that the clinic was closing and he is ready to retire. So I again plucked up my courage that sometimes I think I don't have it, but then I decided to open my own clinic, and I opened it in the fall in September of last year. It's called Psychodynamic Therapy Clinic on Western. I would say it's probably the hardest, the most challenging, and the most rewarding decision in my life. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So my private life has been rather uneven. There were some marriages, there were some divorces. My best husband was my last husband, who is deceased now. Unfortunately, he died about 10 years ago. Some people knew him, Gary Bolton. He was the general manager of KDLT-TV. He was warm, worldly, not bookish, but wise, intelligent, and caring. We had good travels. We were very much in contact with our children and our grandchildren, and he really loved to dine in style. I started to like that too. So, as I said, unfortunately, Gary is deceased. His photos are in my house, and he is still in my heart. So what I learned during those years and how my thinking has evolved. Number one, new friends can be as good or better as the old ones. Money is something that is not bad or dirty. In my culture, money was considered to be dirty. When we were growing up as children, parents always said, you touch the money and wash your hands, money is dirty. So if money is well earned, money is good, it gives you freedom, and it gives you an ability to do good things for others. Politics can be very toxic and divisive, and though, you know, political discussions were very common at our kitchen table with our friends in my family of origin, but it's a different time now, so politics cannot be always discussed, and I learned to keep my mouth shut, especially being in my counseling profession. You know, I have Democrats and Republicans, so it's okay not to be too vocal about politics. I would say political correctness, on the other hand, is really stifling, I think, this society. I remember that during my first year, when I was teaching at Whittier Middle School, I had conversations with John Kendrick. You remember the family that sort of my second father to me. I said that we were on the phone. I said, you know, I go to teachers' lounge and teachers having lunch, and I try to talk to them, and they don't like to talk to me. And he said, what did you talk about? I said, politics, finances, political campaign. And he said, please don't do that. People do not talk about politics to people they don't know, especially probably people with a Russian accent. So I said, what should I talk about? He said, the weather. The weather in South Dakota. That was the end of the conversation. I have been very interested and passionate about helping young people, especially young people from other cultures. So that has been my work, my passion, my volunteering for almost 30 years. But you know, I'm probably closer to really focus on my clinic. It's important. It's also, you know, cultures can be messy. Young people, and I learn it more and more as they become young adults, they sort of want to step on your toes, and they know it all. I also remember Mark Twain's quote. He said that when I was 14, I could not stand being around my father. When I became 21 and I had a conversation with him, I was surprised how intelligent he is. He has been learning it for 7 years. So what else did I learn? Yeah, I was sort of like a glutton for romantic, lasting romantic love, but it's all in the past. So about America. America is a great country. There is more freedom here than in many other parts of the world. But political disagreements are toxic. And as I said, I don't care for political correctness either. Another thing about schools and public schools, especially middle schools, are a little bit stifling. And I would say they remind me of socialism. Sorry to say that. I hate the wars, and also, you know, being of generation that my father was in the Second World War as a pilot at the end of the war, so I had nightmares about the war when I was growing up. So Gary, my late husband, and me, we almost got divorced because from the beginning I was against the war in Iraq and he was in favor. But thanks to my persuasive, convincing tactics, he came to Jesus, and he did not care for that war either. I hate the Russian aggression in Ukraine, of course, and I'm waiting. That has been a tragedy for the Ukraine, for Russia as well. And I'm really, really puzzled how good people, and I talk to some people, my sister and friends in Russia, how they can be blinded by fear and propaganda. Some of the Americans have been reaching out. They were asking, do people ask you, is it difficult for you to be a Russian now? I'm really grateful that I have not been feeling that kind of a backlash. When I first, about this church, when I first visited the All Souls, I was like, what kind of a church is this? Why don't they mention baby Jesus? But I think I have figured it out after a few years of being here, and I appreciate the differences and the uniqueness of the people in this church. And sometimes the best time is revealed downstairs over coffee, conversations. Thank you for making me feel at home in this church. I will end with the Russian words "Spasibo" and "Na zdоровье," which means thank you and stay healthy. And also, thank you. And also I brought some Russian chocolates. Putin is bad, Russian chocolate and Russian vodka is good.
Thank you. And I have to say, Russia's loss is our game. So thank you for your protest. Yes. It's now, it's as Paul said earlier, we do need to collect some money. So basically, we're going to do an offering. Yes. So, and half of our news offering always goes to a very charity in town, or community, and this week happens to be Feeding South Dakota. it's, for time reasons, we're gonna go ahead and skip our last song. Yes. We're gonna think we'll check Chalice. Chalice is distinguished when the light goes out and doesn't see the world. Yes, we are going to have a time for some coffee, cookies, and Russian chocolate downstairs. Please join us. We will then meet back up here at probably about 11:25 or so. We'll have a certain discussion with our speakers. Yeah, it's always that's my favorite part of the service. So please join us if you're able. Thank you.